The so-called Dark Ages span approximately 400 years, from the collapse of the Mycenaean civilization to what is known as the Archaic Age, which began with the inauguration of the Olympic Games in 776 BC. These Dark Ages reflect the decline of this period in terms of wealth and material culture. For Breezy, this will be a period of purification and growth, as she will have to deal with tormenting nightmares and recurring dreams related to the tragic death of her beloved tutor, which will cause her depression, anxiety, and profound sadness. Chloris spent many sleepless nights caring for her daughter, as did her pets Kepri and Cypress. The adamantine Cube of Chiron would be one of Breezy's greatest allies in relieving the stress that, for fear of losing it as had happened on several previous occasions, although miraculously the enigmatic cube kept reappearing unexpectedly, would begin to keep him safe in the Palace of Thrace. Should he ever suffer the effects of ergot, he could alleviate the symptoms with the magic powder. At the beginning of the Dark Ages, in the sacred cave of the Palace of Thrace, the magic dropper laid a new luminous egg, from which a marvelous dropperfly was born, whom Breezy named Achilles the Pelid. After a short stay tasting the golden apples and mingling with the protectors of the magic dropper, Achilles set off to explore the Peloponnese region, looking for an interesting place to spend the night, as the flourishing economy of the Mycenaean period had been reduced to subsistence farming. Much of the artistic heritage was lost, including linear writing. Traditions and legends survived through oral transmission. Fleeing poverty, many inhabitants of the region settled on the southern coast of Asia Minor, where the so-called Ionian League would gradually form. Breezy learned from his uncle Boreas that the Dorians, coming from northern Greece, were beginning to fill the power vacuum left by the Achaeans. The invasion of these descendants of Heracles to reclaim the land of their ancestors represented the coexistence of these invading tribes with the natives of the region, among whom there were also many differences. Breezy and his loyal Prometheus, dressed in Mycenaean attire and mounted on the spirited Xanthus and Balius, toured the Peloponnese region to learn firsthand what was happening. In this way, Breezy was able to observe the poor development of pottery making and other artistic expressions. She was also able to observe that stone construction had been completely abandoned in the architectural field. They were also aware of the new cultural changes brought about by the invaders, such as the use of iron, new weapons, and different burial customs. During these adventures on the backs of magical horses, and thanks to the adventures of the protective and metamorphic cat Cypress, Breezy met the elderly Doris, grandson of Deucalion, who would become the eponymous founder of the tribe and mythological patriarch of the Hellenes. Very soon, Breezy will explore the area of dominion of the Dorian tribes, which encompasses the entire Peloponnese region and certain Aegean islands. The best example of the development of Dorian society is Spartan culture. Breezy will also not overlook the fact that the ancient city of Athens had become the principal city of the Ionian tribes in the Balkans. This fragmentation, which took place in Hellas during the so-called Dark Ages, would constitute the framework for the development of political nuclei, organized into small cities, the genesis of city-states or polis, which contributed new cultural models and an economic dynamism that allowed them to flourish. In the Palace of Thrace, during the Dark Ages for the Hellenes, and while other cultures around the world continued their development, the magic dropper sheltered in the sacred cave continued to spawn drops, which transformed into wonderful dropperflies, dispersing throughout the centers of civilization on the planet. One of these wonderful dropperflies was baptized by Breezy as Moses the Hebrew, who went to live in the city of Jerusalem, where Breezy and his collaborators had built a new headquarters and educational center known as the House of the Book. Before the rise of the so-called Dark Ages, Breezy had maintained for several centuries an unforgettable headquarters in the splendorous coastal city of Ugarit, the center of the literary world, whose gardens and surrounding flowers, cultivated by Chloris, were the talk of the town. The cosmopolitan city of Ugarit, then known as the Jewel of the Mediterranean, was the birthplace of the alphabet. This alphabet, consisting of 31 letters and written from left to right, combined the most advanced features of the cuneiform and hieroglyphic systems. The creation of the alphabet was an innovation of incalculable value for the development of writing and literature. It was here that a school workshop was established for the first time, and the first volumes or scrolls of different styles, both papyrus and parchment, began to be produced. This was accompanied by the creation of the first libraries, dominated by collections of clay tablets. Wax tablets with their respective stylus also became very popular. From the founding of this workshop school onward, Breezy, a lover of literature and books, would help writers with their manuscripts, often keeping the original documents, which would later become part of the collection at the Palace of Thrace. During the same period, in another of his many incarnations, the magician Merlot had reappeared in the fertile region of Canaan, where he was known as the enlightened Sanchuniathan of Beirut. It was at the workshop school of Ugarit that the magician Merlot Sanchuniathan wrote the treatise entitled On the Ugaritic Phoenician Alphabet. The marvelous dropperfly, Amita the Canaanite, had also resided in Ugarit for several centuries, exercising complete control over events in the wealthy coastal city and the main commercial port of the Mediterranean. However, with the invasion of the so-called Sea Peoples, the envied city of Ugarit had been sacked, burned, and reduced to ashes. After the destruction of the unforgettable Ugarit, the Hebrews became its cultural heirs. The marvelous dropperfly, Amita the Canaanite, went to live in Jerusalem, becoming the city chosen by Breezy to establish a new camp. A few years later, the elderly Amita will return to the Palace of Thrace to undergo his final metamorphosis and transform into a new droppy book written in the Ugaritic language. Therefore, and due to his inexplicable synchronization with reality, the magic dropper will lay another luminous egg from which the marvelous dropperfly, Moses the Hebrew, had emerged. He went to live in Jerusalem, occupying Amita's chamber. Jerusalem witnessed humans' divine connection. There, Breezy also came into contact with David and later with his son Solomon, who would become the respected monarchs of the United Kingdom of Israel. Solomon was one of the children blessed by destiny, to whom Breezy paid close attention due to his gifted intelligence. At a very young age, he was sent to study at the School of the Mysteries of the Eye of Horus in Egypt, where Moses himself had studied as an Egyptian prince, and where he received the knowledge necessary to manipulate the mysterious sacred urn known as the Ark of the Covenant. There, he gained the necessary knowledge about the spark that lies within human beings, which connects them with divinity. In Jerusalem, the mysterious magician Merlot reappeared. Some Jewish prophets have identified him with the archangel Metatron, the scribe of God. Merlot, now representing the figure of Metatron, influenced the development of Jewish mysticism, closely linked to sacred geometry through Kabbalah, a school of esoteric thought in Judaism. A clear example is seen in mystical geometric figures such as pentagons, related to the pentacle, a renowned talisman or magical object, and hexagons, related to the Star of David, which represent the union of heaven and earth. Metatron's cube is also notable, its circular design resembling that of the apple garden in the Palace of Thrace, designed by the Cyclops, the divine artisans. Merlot Metatron also helped design and build the first temple of Jerusalem and was the mentor of the Phoenician mystic, alchemist, and architect Hiram Abif, who had studied the fabulous magical papyri in the city of Tyre and was responsible for converting Solomon's temple, where the Ark of the Covenant would eventually rest, into the most important architectural work of its time. The wise Solomon also began the crucial task of capturing the historical traditions of his people in written form. Breezy maintained a close relationship with the wise Solomon and with Makeda, the Queen of Sheba, from whose torrid love affair their son Menelik was born, who would later become king of Ethiopia. King Solomon, a lover of mysteries, was an inveterate fanatic of the Khepri scarab, while Makeda opted for the exoticism of the cypress cat. For his part, Menelik will be an admirer of the marvelous dropperfly Moses the Hebrew and a lover of the majesty of the horses Xanthus and Balis. Menelik returned to study at the House of the Book in Jerusalem, accompanied by Axum, the marvelous Ethiopian dropperfly, who helped him bypass palace security and exchange the Ark of the Covenant for a replica, taking the original back to Ethiopia. Breezy keeps the original manuscript of the Kebra Nagast, the Book of the Glory of the Kings of Ethiopia, which tells us the true story of the Solomonic dynasty. During the so-called Dark Ages, Breezy and the enigmatic magician Merlot would also meet again at the ceremonial center of Stonehenge, where Merlot acted as a druid high priest, or in Mesopotamian Babylon, as a renowned Chaldean mathematician and astrologer, one of the first disseminators of the 12 signs of the zodiac. Also in India, where he had reincarnated as the flying sage Narada Muni, another powerful rishi of the flourishing Vedic culture, or in ancient China, where he had reappeared in the person of the honorable and virtuous Duke of Zhou.